Chapter 14. The Unfiltered Sun. The gray had been thickening for 10 minutes. Then it began to thin. Rowan registered the change first as a difference in the cable's voice. The tether had been singing one steady note all the way up through the dense middle stratum. And now the note climbed. The moisture that had been beading on every surface stopped beating and started running, sliding down the rail and the deck and the housing of the instrument panel in fine, clean lines. The light around them, which had been the inside of a cloud for the last quarter of the ascent, was paler than it had been a moment ago. "Coming up to it," Lena said from the pilot station. Her voice was the same calm it had been on launch, the calm of someone who had crossed this threshold 200 times. The cloud went translucent, and then it went bright. The platform broke through. The cloud surface fell away beneath them, and the sky opened, and Rowan was looking at the sun. Not the gray suggestion of a light window. Not the diluted version that reached the mountain on a good afternoon. The source direct and unmediated and brighter than any light he had been built to receive. His eyes watered behind the tinted lenses. The warmth on his face arrived as a physical weight, an insistent pressure on every exposed surface, and he understood for the first time why his mother had described skin protection as a daily necessity. Not as concept, but as cost. He had read the word in the medical encyclopedia and filed it as historical curiosity. Now his skin told him what the word had meant. His free hand came up to shield his face before he had told it to. He stopped the gesture halfway, recognized it as instinct, lowered the hand. The lenses were doing what they were supposed to do. But the impulse had been there, immediate and animal, and he registered it. "First-timers always squint and reach for something to hold," Lena said from the pilot station. Her voice carried the calm of a woman who had logged this moment 200 times. Mind the rail. He had not noticed his hand on the rail. He noticed now. His grip was harder than it needed to be. Marcus stood beside him at the rail with his observation notebook already open, pen uncapped. Expression caught between his professional attention and something rawer. The need to have other people see this. Rowan recognized the need without being able to name it. "Now you know what we lost," Marcus said. "And what is coming back?" Rowan looked down. The cloud layer was a landscape. A gray-white sea reaching to every horizon, its surface textured with ridges and slow-moving waves. Its interior visible in places where the surface dipped into shallow valleys of denser gray. The cloud was not flat, and it was not still. It rolled and folded with its own internal weather on a scale that made the platform feel smaller than it already was. From below, this layer was the prison wall of his world and his mother's world and every person's world for the past 3 generations. From above, it was a kind of ocean, and the sky went on past it in blue. Pale at the horizon, deeper overhead, deeper than any blue he had pictured from the illustrations in his books. Mira was below this. Mira was in a bed on a mountain inside this gray. Coughing into a cloth she still tried to hide from him. The antibiotics were in his pack at the platform's storage rail. He touched the strap once to confirm the pack was secured. Then he turned his eyes back to the sun. The burn on his face was steady, and he did not move away from it. Time passed. He did not track it the way he would have on the mountain. Marcus was working the instrument panel, taking readings from a hand-built sensor that drew air through a filter and weighed the deposit, calling values out loud as he wrote them in the notebook. Particulate at altitude is 2.1, lower than the last ascent. UV index is 16 holding. Temperature -22. Rowan registered the numbers against what his physics textbook had told him about atmosphere. 2.1 meant nothing to him as a value, but the lower than last time meant something. The layer was thinning at this altitude, and the thinning was measurable in the time between Marcus's ascents. "How long between this reading and your last one?" Rowan asked. 11 days. Marcus did not look up from the page. Same altitude, same approximate position, The drop is real and it is small. 3%. 3% in 11 days. Across a season, less than 1% net. The cloud refills as the flums work. They thin one zone, the surrounding atmosphere flows in to equalize. We are watching a system, not a clearance. Rowan thought about that while Marcus wrote. Lena made small adjustments to the cable system, the platform compensating for the steady pressure of high-altitude wind. The chorus was present here, not as the distant valley echo Rowan had heard before, but as a physical vibration he could feel through the deck plates and the seal of his mask. The clouds carried the sound up. Up here, the sound was the air itself. Then Rowan saw movement below, not above. In the cloud surface, perhaps 300 meters from the platform, the gray bulged upward. A long, slow disturbance that traveled through the cloud sea, the way a large body travels through water, pushing a wave of cloud matter ahead of it. A second bulge appeared parallel to the first. Then a third. Marcus. Marcus followed his eyes, and his face changed. There, Marcus said. All three at once. I have never seen all three at once. The first flum broke the surface. It rose through the cloud the way Rowan imagined a whale might rise through water, though he had never seen a whale and had only the textbook's illustrations to picture. The cloud parted around the body in wisps and streamers, and what emerged was translucent, membranous, and larger than the platform he stood on by an order of magnitude, perhaps 40 meters from leading edge to tail. The sunlight passed through its body. For several seconds the creature was illuminated from within, internal structures visible in silhouette through the membrane skin, chambers and channels and darker masses that pulsed in a rhythm Rowan recognized. The rhythm of the chorus, made visible. The sound was the body working. Then it dove. The membrane curved downward, the tapered tail clearing the cloud last, and the gray closed over it. A second flum breached. Smaller, the membrane a different hue, more amber than the first creature's clear white. It rose half its body length above the surface, with its leading edge open in what might have been a mouth, and the cloud matter visibly flowed into the opening and through the body. Behind the creature, the air was cleaner, the particulate density visibly lower in its wake. A trail of cleared atmosphere that filled back in slowly as the surrounding cloud matter flowed into the gap. Filter feeding. The textbook's word for what whales did. Made real and made enormous and operating on the substance of the sky. The third bulge had not surfaced yet. It was closer than the others. Closer than the first two had been before they breached. Rowan saw the bow wave it pushed and judged the distance against the platform's position and understood, the way he had understood his father's solar collector when a winter wind came in at the wrong angle, that something was about to happen that the system had not been designed for. Lena, he said. Lena had already seen it. Her hands were on the cable controls. The third flum surfaced perhaps 80 meters from the platform. The displaced air hit them as a wall. The platform yawed hard to the left. Marcus's notebook went out of his hands and over the rail. Rowan caught the rail with both hands as his feet slid on the deck. And Lena was working the cable controls, paying out tether to absorb the lateral force, her voice steady and continuous as she called out adjustments to herself. The cable system Rowan had repaired sang under the load. The new bearing housing held. But somewhere above the housing, in a tensioner Rowan had inspected during the repair and judged sound for normal operating loads, something gave a different sound, a high mechanical whine that did not belong. Rowan knew that sound. He had heard it on his father's solar collector once, during the storm that took the upper mount. A spring under load past tolerance, beginning to flex its housing. The tensioner was on the cable assembly above his head, 6 feet up, accessible by the maintenance grip he had used during the repair. If the housing failed, the tensioner would release and the cable would slack and the platform would drop in a way Lena could not compensate for fast enough. He moved before he had finished thinking, his body doing what years of maintaining a hand-built collector in mountain wind had taught it to do. He climbed the maintenance grip with one hand while his other hand reached the tensioner. He pulled his sleeve down over his palm and wrapped his hand around the cable above the tensioner and pulled, taking the load off the failing housing, redistributing the tension to his own body and the maintenance grip. His shoulder took the load while his feet braced against the rail. "Lena," he said. "Reset when you can. I have it." Lena did not look at him. Her hands were doing 3 things at once on the cable controls. 30 seconds, she said. He held, the cable cutting into his shoulder through his coat while Lena's hands worked the controls. The amber flum was still feeding, 50 meters away now. The chorus filling the air around them, the sound full and rich and close enough to feel through the deck. The third flum, the close one, was diving. The bow wave was easing. The platform settled into the new tension distribution. Lena's hands moved, and the retraction cycle ran. The cable above Rowan's head took its load back from his shoulder. And the tensioner housing stopped its whine. And the system returned to a state Lena could manage. He released his grip on the cable. His sleeve came away from the cable in pieces. The fabric had abraded through under the load, and his palm came away with it. A long raw line across the meat below his thumb where his sleeve had failed first and the cable had stripped skin. He looked at the damage once and climbed back down the maintenance grip. Marcus was staring at him. The notebook and the pen were both gone, and Marcus's hands hung empty at his sides. "How did you know?" Marcus said. "My father's collector," Rowan said. The same sound. Lena's voice came clipped from the pilot station. Battery drew hard. "We have 40 minutes, not 90. Marcus turned to Lena, then back to the cloud surface. The amber flum was still there, still feeding. The larger one had not surfaced again. Rowan did the calculation. 40 minutes above the clouds against the cost of those 40 minutes on the mountain. The antibiotics were in his pack. His mother had been coughing blood when he left, and the journey back was 3 days. Every hour up here was an hour she was not getting the medicine. He had already made this trade once, in Meridian, when he chose to ascend instead of starting home. He could make the argument to descend now, and Marcus might even agree. He did not make the argument. He had come up here to see, and he wanted to keep seeing for as long as the platform would let him. Marcus took a long breath, and Rowan watched him choose. "We stay," Marcus said. "We observe until 30, then we go." Lena nodded. Rowan unwrapped the remains of his sleeve from his hand. The raw line across his palm was clean, not deep. But it would not let him grip with that hand for several days. He thought about administering the antibiotics on the mountain, about the careful work of measuring doses for his mother, about doing that with one hand. He thought about the descent and the journey home and what the injury would cost him. Then he reached into his pack with his good hand and found the wrapping cloth he had packed for blisters. He bound the hand tight, working by feel, the way his mother had taught him to bind a wound when no one else was there to do it. The amber flum dove back below the surface. The chorus shifted as one voice left the pattern. The cloud closed over the dive site and the bow waves faded and the gray sea rolled on, giving no sign that beneath it, creatures the size of buildings were feeding on the substance of the sky. He would describe this to his mother, the sun, the sky, the flums, the hand, and how he got it. She would ask the right questions, and she would not pretend the cost was nothing. Marcus was writing again. He had retrieved his pen from a deck pocket. The notebook was gone past recovery, somewhere in the cloud below. So Marcus was writing on the back of an instrument log sheet, his hand moving fast. Rowan stood at the rail with his bound hand resting on the metal. He looked at the sun until his eyes could not hold it anymore. And then he looked at the cloud sea and watched for the next bow wave to rise. memorizing what it looked like from above so he could carry it down with him.
Chapter Guild, Stories for Your Mind.